Hi, I'm Steve. Welcome back to the Baker's Cave. Today we're doing something a little bit different. My niece tried to move the TV in the trunk of her car without wrapping her TV, and guess what? It broke. So I thought, let's take it apart. Maybe I can order a screen real cheap rather than having to buy a new one. Actually, she's already got a new one, but I'm curious, how inexpensive TVs are now. I want to see exactly what kind of screen this is, and maybe we can get the screen real cheap and replace it. If not, I'm sure there's plenty of Greeblies in here that we can take apart and use for Halloween stuff or whatever project we want. First thing we'll do is we'll unplug this before we start taking screws out. I think this thing's hardwired in here. Yep. Who hardwires in a plug anymore? Alright. That means we'll just pull it from up here. There we go. We'll tip it forward. Certainly can't break the screen by doing that. And now we'll just start taking the back off. So we'll take the back off and then we'll be right back. There were a lot of screws holding just this section here on here. I think I have them all. I should be able to take them off. So I think our next step is to get the rest of this off here so we can get to the front of this. Two speakers are right here, the left and the right. And I think I'm going to take these off next. Okay, so now the two speakers are out. Whereas if this TV is not salvageable, these would be very nice for a Halloween prop. So, that front is off of here. I'm going to put this down over here for a quick second. Now that white you saw on that screen, I believe that is the backlighting for the actual TV screen. Here is that screen right here. And I don't know if you can see, but right here you can see where the long crack is all on the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some research right here. I'm going to look up these numbers, see if they lead us anywhere.
Several days later.
As you saw before, I was going to take the screen off of it and see if I could find a replacement for that. I could not find a replacement for that. So, well, that's a lie. I could find a replacement for it. It was a little hard, but when I did, it was like 130, 140 bucks. This is a 39-inch television. You can buy a new one for 150 just about if you go to Best Buy or some of the other places. So what I did do, if you remember on the other side, is I took off all the electronics off the back. Okay, these will be some great Greeblies for some Halloween projects. Another small board here. Isn't this amazing what makes a TV work now? This is it compared to all your tubes and capacitors and everything else that you had years ago. Now we flip this forward, so this is the front of the TV screen, and there's a couple interesting things here, especially Katrina. She thought it was fairly interesting. There's this white screen right here. There's actually two. They're like a polarizing and a filter. And this one here, we thought these would be cool. And we took these off. But here's what's really up. And there's more. There's another silvery kind of. Actually, it's. I don't know if you can see, kind of reflective, which this would be really cool for an effect, for a prop. So let me put that over here. But here's what I found really interesting. That was all for the backlight. You may not know, but on LED TVs, there's actually lights in the back that make that image, darker or dimmer or brighter. So there are some LEDs all placed throughout here, which would be really cool if we could get them to work. So next thing I think I'm doing is I'm going to take this white paper up, which reflects the light up. I'm not worried about that because we could always spray paint this a reflective white or whatever. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to lift this up and we're going to see what voltage these LEDs are. I'm hoping they're like a DC voltage LED that we can actually fire up and do something cool. We could put a poster in here. There's a lot of Halloween effects we could really do with this. So I think that's what we're going to be doing next. I've removed all the white paper. There's still little pieces left around here. We can always paint this white if we decide we want to use this, but I've now exposed what looks to be 3 LED strips. Here's the 3 LED strips right here. These strips, each strip seems to be wired in series, and then these 3 strips of LEDs are hooked also in series. So it's going to multiply the voltage, whatever it is we need. So we've zoomed in on one of the label here, one of these strips, and as you can see, it says 3.4 volts. And if we move over to here, here's one of the LEDs. There's a minus, and then there's a plus, which leads me to believe these are DC LEDs, or get fired off of DC voltage rather. And there's 7 of these LEDs on one strip. So 7 times 3.4 comes out to 23.8 volts. Pretty close to 24. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook some voltage up to here and see what we got. So we know what the voltage is now. Now there's 3 strips, okay? Then from what it looks like, each one of these, like we said, is hooked in series. So each one of these strips takes 23.8 volts, or at least that's what I think. And then you times that by 3, which is, 60-something volts to fire this whole thing. Because each one of these strips is hooked in series, so you multiply the voltage. So here's what I did. I cut this bottom strip right here. I cut the power lead off from the rest of it, so now this one strip is isolated. So in theory, from what I think, it's going to take 23.8, 24 volts to fire this thing up. So what I've done is I've taken 2 leads, I've put it on one of our power adapters right here, and I had this real long cable that goes all the way back to the my power supply. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to start at 3. I know it's low. We're going to start at 3.4 volts, and we're just going to slowly increase that voltage until we see some life come out of these LEDs. Here's the whole TV. Of course, we're only doing this bottom strip. Here's the power adapter I have in here. So here we are at the bench power supply. I'm using channel 2. I have it set to 3 volts right now. And what we're going to do is we're just going to gently first activate channel 2. And nothing's going on. 4 volts, 5 volts, 6, 7, 8. So far nothing is going on. We are at 12 volts, 13 volts, 14. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip all the way up to 20. Up. At 20 we seem to have some activity. I'm going to back it down to 18. And they're very dim. I don't know if you can see that. Going back up to 20, 19. Here's 20. Okay, so we think 23.8 is where this is going to be the sweet spot for this. Here is 23, as you can see right there. So 23.8. So I'm going to come over here. We're going to take this up to 23.8 volts, and I have this only at a half an amp, which is about maybe 12 watts. So it doesn't take much amperage to really push these lights, and they really look like they're really nice and bright. What I'm going to do now is, devil hates a coward. It's going to be hard to find a power supply that is going to supply 23.8 volts. It's going to be easy to find one that supplies 24 volts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Okay, 24 volts. It's a little brighter, but it's not burning out the LEDs. I don't think that 0.2 volts is going to make much of a difference. If I want, I could always put a resistor there to bring some of that down. So that means that 24 volts will supply one strip. Here you go, right here. So what we would do next is, instead of hooking these all up in series, these strips, I would take each one of these power leads and go right to here. So, each power lead from each strip goes right to here. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to come right back. I've gone ahead and broken out the positive and negative of each one of these strips, and I've wired them all together. I've soldered the connections, but I just put electrical tape on top of each of the solder connections to save some time. That'll be all right for this experiment. And then I ran it down into here and put the plug into here. So now when we plug the power in, back out here, in theory, all of these should light. They're all lit, and this is at a 1/2 watt. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back over to the power supply. And I'm going to bring the wattage up a little bit, or the amperage, which is, you know. So I am going to bring, okay, so you just saw I went from 1/2 amp to 0.6 amps. And there was a fairly noticeable difference. I want to bring it up to 7. It's pretty bright. I don't know whether I want to push it more than that. Let's take it back down to 1/2 watt again. It's actually hurting my eyes. .7. Know what we're going to do at this point? This point here is 0.7. 0.7 amps times 24 volts is, let's do the math the easy way. What is 24 times 0.7?
It's 16.8.
So that's about 17 watts. It's just getting pretty bright. Let's lift this up here. Now let's go back to the overhead. Let's start putting some of these sheets on here that they had. These light up, and this is what, you know, shows the light for behind the TV screen. And then it had a couple other things on there. It had this thing on top of it. Really blocking the light out in it. Let's take this off. Now, in theory, electrical theory, the LED should only draw what they need, so taking the amperage up, it shouldn't be bad. I'm going to go to 1 amp. I'm just going to throw it caution to the air. There's 1 amp, and it's noticeably brighter. I think that would be perfect for anything we would need. That's really bright. These, because we only need 23.8 volts. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this down to 23 volts. I took this down to 23 volts and I didn't see anything dimming at 1 watt. Okay, so we start to see dimming at 21, 22, 23, it seems to be good. 23 volts, 1 amp. All right, here we have, I can't even look at the screen almost. So I've got 23 volts at 1.5 amps. That seems to be fairly safe. This is pretty bright. There you go right there. So now, ooh, spooky. Okay, so here's, back up so I'm not looking at the light. Okay, so here's what we figured out. I can now fire off these lights with 23 volts, 1.5 amps. I should be able to find a power supply that's roughly around 23 volts. It may not necessarily be for this TV, but I'm sure I can find it and modify it. It's probably for a computer or something. So I can find a 23. Long and short of it is I can find a 23 volt power supply. And I know, and 1.5 amps minimum will drive these LEDs. And the reason I'm stuttering over my words is as I'm explaining this to you, I am thinking of all the things we can do. All the things we can do with this. What this makes me want to do is every time I see an LED TV laying on the side of the road and on the trash bin is grab it. Because this, first off, here's what I think I want to do is behind me, there's a window and people are always walking behind or whatever. So that's why we've got that Farnsworth poster from Warehouse 13 up there, which is one of the projects we're going to be doing. We're going to be recreating that Farnsworth, if you know what that is. But we were thinking about putting a Maker's Cave logo back there. So I'm thinking if I get some acrylic, cut to the shape we need right here, we can cut the acrylic to the shape we need and use some translucent vinyl. We can cut that over in the vinyl cutting room. I can make a nice lit Maker's Cave sign. Another thing that's be cool for it, again, is if you take that diffusing material that was with it, you could put that over top of here, and you could put a poster on top of here. So it'd be kind of like a movie marquee. You could actually, that you see at the theaters, it would light the poster up from behind. The opportunities are limitless. I mean, if you want to do, you could turn this thing upside down and use it for a light. Again, you know, on Halloween, it's, gosh, heck, who knows what you could use for Halloween. So now, I'm not going to sleep the thrown out TVs on the side of the road. Even if we didn't want all this, just stealing these strips would be cool. These would be good if you wanted to put these underneath a cabinet, display case, and light up that. I mean, so not only did we get some Greeblies out of this for Halloween stuff or whatever project you may want to Greeblie up, we actually found a practical purpose for some of the guts of this TV. This is cool. So I think that's going to be the end of this video of showing you what you can do with an old TV. I might do a video later on of what I'm going to actually use this for, but this is cool. So to summarize what we did, we took apart the TV, screen wasn't usable, we kept some of the electronic guts that we can use for decoration on different projects as Greeblies, and then we discovered these LEDs that were in here, and we were able to fire these off with 23 volts and 1.5 amps. Pretty cool project for today. I know some people aren't interested in this, some are, but this is really, really cool. So I guess that means we're at the end of the video. If you found this interesting or you like this, be sure to hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when these things come out, be sure to hit the bell. And until the next build or tear down or whatever we do here, I'm Steve. Thanks for stopping by the Maker's Cave.